Source Hunter, you've made it into the hamlet of Silverglen, I see. Unnerving spot, don't you find? Leandra has fashioned herself a hero here, but the townsfolk don't seem to know the truth behind the conduit, though they call themselves Immaculates. The advantage of being a puss, my friend, is that one can pussyfoot. A white-haired wizard draws attention, but a cat can move about unnoticed and, indeed, unseen. Not that I'm not extra wary of these bloodsuckers, though. There's a conspicuous absence of pets in this eerie little town. The Immaculate's presence here is highly disconcerting. But we mustn't lose sight of our mission, Source Hunter. The White Witch resides somewhere in the wilds of the surrounding forest, and we must find her.
The degenerates here claim they have been cleansed, but I can still smell the stink of persisting putrescence wafting from their grimy flesh. Silverglen. This place sickens me. I can tell you if you wish, but you'd have to listen to the tale of my life, because my future, such as it is rooted deeply into my history. So I shall. Once upon a time, I was a king in a land of beauty to the east. A land of tigers and slender towers, of deserts and forests, of sun and all the world's wealth. I was a young king, handsome and all-powerful. Every nobleman would have killed his own brother if I promised to take his daughter's hand in marriage. But I refused their incessant implorations. I knew my life as a sovereign would be self-indulgent, but also a self-delusory one, if I weren't to marry for love. And so a handful of years went by. The king's throne I myself occupied, whereas the queen's throne remained empty but for the court's cats that would nap the afternoons away upon its velvet cushions. But then one day, a young woman visited my kingdom. She was a poetess and a storyteller. People flocked to her, listened to her every word as if receiving mantras from the divines. I invited her to my palace, and soon our days, our nights, our love and our lives intertwined. Hiraka. How I miss her still. Miss the brilliance of her mind that was both as sparkling and as unbreakable as the diamonds that adorned her body. Oh, and how I miss her body. 1,000 artists I could have commanded, show me beauty. But she would have effortlessly surpassed their every endeavor, and curving her lips into a smile, make them break their sculptures in tearful impotence. And yet, true happiness, that commodity more precious and even more fleeting than the dominion of kings, sang to us like the nightingale, only to depart come the dawn of our first year's unity. A malady overtook me, and I began to wither. It was an unparalleled horror. Scores of physicians flocked to my bedside. They traveled from realms across the seas, hoping to cure the mighty Jehan, undo the gloom that had befallen the land, and mere vultures that they were, to be paid handsomely for their efforts. But none of their potions took effect. Their salves seared, but did not soothe my fading flesh. Like a ghoul I looked, unburied yet risen from the grave. In futile anger I struck my mirror, but broke my brittle fingers only, not its ever-mocking surface. It went like this, Hunter. If a ghoul I had become, so a dark turn of thought convinced me, a ghoul's methods I should employ to escape the labyrinthian crypt of corporeal corruption. A necromancer I'd be. Yes, Only from deep within the deliriums of death would I tunnel my way back into the gardens of life. I did unspeakable things in the dusky dungeons that twist like forgotten veins to long-deceased organs far beneath my castle's sunlit halls. Halls which held my throne and held the bed upon which Heraka slept, her very touch blessing the satin she reposed upon. Still there came no relief. Perversions I created in scores, but they were mere undead all. Creatures so piteous that the thought of cheating death in their guise frightened me more than the swing of the scythe itself. Like mosquitoes in the night, panic and despair beset me until I turned to that darkest of all arts, demonology. It had to be. There was no other way. I could feel the life slipping out of me like love out of a betrayed spouse's heart. So I studied tomes so old the dust that fell from their centuries' unperused pages never knew the light of the stars that now shine. I drew forbidden symbols. I spoke unhallowed words, and from the smoke that rose like a dragon's last breath, a demon appeared to me and said, "Ask, O blighted king, and you shall have." "Just tell me," I cried, "tell me what ails me." Heraka. Never had I known a single word can cut deeper than the sharpest of daggers. With maddening glee, the demon told me she was one of his kin, a soul-swallowing horror that had been feeding on both my body and my spirit like a leech. An ancient being was she, that moved from king to king throughout the ages, filling their hearts with love, then draining them of life. After such revelations, does one truly desire to live on? Death seemed like a mother then, welcoming me with her all will be well embrace. Yet still I feared exceedingly her seemingly sweet caress, and the oblivion that would follow. Release me from her, demon, and give me back the strength of a sick, free existence. So went my desperate plea. It smiled, of course it did. Smiled bare 100 razors as its eyes came alight with infernal fire. 1,000 years I will give you, it whispered. But then your soul shall be mine to incarcerate in the depths of hellish nemesis. As for your throne, that I'll have now. What say you, O brittle king? Do you accept my terms? I think you know the answer to that question, Hunter. But I've said enough for now. These memories are painful to recollect. So let us turn to the rest of them later. By all means, if you're in the mood for such a dark tale. More prey awaits.
Well, well, well. So our very own demon hunter once dabbled in the so-called darkest of arts himself.
A man so utterly betrayed and dying will grasp at any straw. I can hardly blame him.
Neither can I. Clearly his great love was almost the very death of him. She broke his heart in more ways than one, and I too would go to any length to repair it.
What news from the mines?
No news, sir.
Goblins will slice us to ribbons if we approach the bridge.
Unacceptable. I want those goblins out of my mind by yesterday. Send another man. As many as it takes.
We haven't enough men among us to take on even a few of them, sir.
Are you deaf? I said I want those goblins out! Make it happen, even if you have to spear Drexis yourself. A source hunter! My liege, I am at your disposal. I am Lawrence, the representative of the mining guild responsible for operations in Silver Glen. Please, valiant hunter, let us know how we can assist you. Please, your grace, I am completely at your disposal. Oh, I am no one special. Merely a humble servant of the guild, and shepherd to the happy flock of miners within this settlement. My only cause for complaint, your grace, are these awful goblins. They're starving us out, refusing even a single honest miner his right to work. Perhaps, my most upright highness, you might be able to help us with this little problem. You must forgive me if I become somewhat overcome when discussing it, my liege. To think how I've been betrayed. To think how the humble miners of Silver Glen suffer. I invited a tribe of goblins to assist us in clearing the tenebrium from our mine, you see. The leader of the troop, a satin-spitting Satan named Drexis, promised to clear the tenebrium and be gone. When the job was done, though, he and his band of totem-brained fiends refused to vacate. They've kept close guard of the bridges to the mine since, and they'll slice whoever dares approach them into ribbons. These goblins follow Drexis like lemmings, your grace, and if only I could undo the traitor, they'd slither back to the swamp they crawled from. Drexis's head on my mantle would save countless miners from a slow starvation, my liege. What's one goblin over countless disenfranchised workers?
Tell me, sweetie, do you have sunburn, or are you always busy?
Your thing, darling.
Feel the goddess's vigor coursing through my very veins.
Coming right
Of
up.
a new order, Paul. Oh, you startled me. Let me compose myself. Hello, stranger. How can I help you? He's Will? But that means he's... Oh, no. Oh, not my cutie, broody buttercup.
I don't mean to make trouble where there ain't any, comrade, but in my years of hunting source, I learned that anyone so eager to climb into your lap after a moment's meeting is hiding something they hope you won't discover. I'm not saying this Lawrence character is involved in sorcery, but it wouldn't exactly surprise me a lick to find out he knows more than he's letting on. Warms my heart to picture him squirming about plain as day with 3 seasoned source hunters on his tail. Nowhere to hide his sniveling mug than at the bottom of a burlap sack.
Well enough. Would be better if you'd glance in my direction, though.
Truth is, I'm a wee bit short at the moment, waiting for a particular plan of mine to pan out for now.
Brandon's the best overseer there ever was. No one's a more eager miner than he is. Wonder how he avoided catching rot, though.
Nothing stronger than a glass of water for me, thanks.
Won't be a moment.
Do you believe in the gods, baby? 'Cause you're the answer to all my prayers.
Hi there, cutie pie. Wanna have a good time?
Welcome be, O seeking souls, to this holy house of Immaculates. I am Loic, enlightened one among Immaculates, spokesman for the holy conduit, as she is spokesman for the goddess herself. Hers is the blood. Then it shall be my pleasure to answer them. We are the chosen ones of the goddess. The benedictions of the blood render our bodies and spirits unblemished, for such is her mercy, that we may all become part of the sacred soul. And you too, Seeker, could become one such part. You find yourself in the goddess's temple, therefore it follows she wants you to take the true path. So here, have this hallowed tome, read it, absorb the wisdom within, then find the second part and do with it the same. If an immaculate you want to be, a test of knowledge shall be your first step towards enlightenment. Do you hold it to be true, O Seeker, that you are ready to be tested? A most sacred trio of queries shall I put before thee, but even if thou falterest but a single time, unworthy will thou be deemed of the goddess's love. Your unpreparedness disappoints me. But an immaculate is not born, he is made. Made you may yet be, through study, devotion, and diligence. The conduit, yes. She, the most exalted of all, second only to the goddess. It was she who brought us first her divine words, then her divine will, a will made real in blood. Truly, though, she is quite beyond your concern, O wandering soul. She stands so very high above your humble station.
Diligently will I read the words of the goddess.
Are immune to rot. I guess 'cause they're already rotten.
Not terrible.
Hello again, Your Grace. Please, Your Grace, I am completely at your disposal. Those brutes! I invited them here to save our valued miners from the ill effects of clearing Tenebrium, and those interlopers met my invitation with a hostile takeover. They haven't allowed a single human miner past them in months, and meanwhile my men have all but forgotten their vocation and turned instead to their damned religion. Useless stuff, my liege, worse than common dirt. But 10 times as difficult to extract, and infinitely more dangerous. If only we'd known in advance the terrible effect rot would have, we would have stopped trying to clear it immediately. Yes, a dreadful business, that. I've been fortunate enough to avoid the sickness so far, my liege, but my heart truly breaks for the families of those who've been afflicted. You see, my liege, when a miner has been overlong exposed to tenebrium, he begins showing certain symptoms. Gangrene about the extremities, fatigue, malaise. At first we attributed these symptoms to poor diet, laziness, and general malingering. Had we known then what we've since discovered, we never would have continued operations. But alas, mistakes were made, and those we lost can never be brought back, no matter what that crackpot conduit would have one believe. My liege, you ought not to concern yourself with the fraudulent leader of a crackpot cult. Really, the whole affair is an utter embarrassment to Silver Glen. Some insane huckster, calling herself the conduit of the goddess, made her way to Silver Glen at the height of the rot hold on our miners. The people were desperate, you see. When by magic or illusion she managed to cure a handful of them of the affliction, every last one of the bunch began speaking of her as though she were some messiah. Now most of the town is taken with her little cult of immaculates, as she calls them. Fortunately for her, she disappeared shortly after her little trick, or I would have thrown her into prison and swallowed the key myself. Imagine hypnotizing an entire town with nothing more than snake oil. Enough to know the whole institution has been a blight on productivity. With the blessings of the conduit to replace a sense of a job well done, the miners care hardly at all for getting the mines back in good working order.
Come hither, sweetheart. Oh, if I had a star for every time you...
Why don't you stay a while, darling? I just know I could take you on a wild ride if you let me.
Well, it's business for you anyway. Swell enough, swell enough. Would be better if you'd glance in my
Hi there, honey. You look like you're in dire need of some fun, and I'm just the girl to fun you. Oh, sugar, that's a story for another day, ain't it? Speaking of, yours and mine has hardly begun. What say we get better acquainted upstairs? I've got all kinds of, details to share with you. Oh, go right ahead, sweetheart. They just stand around and praise the so-called goddess all day long. I've no idea who she is, but apparently she gets her kicks from having blood sprayed all over her. Now, I knew a girl once who was into that kind of stuff. Her clients used to call her goddess and mistress too, but there was precious little divine about her. Darling, I don't hardly recognise this place no more. Everything's changed since those silly immaculates came into vogue. The miners, they used to spend their last penny on a backwards glance from yours truly. But now, they'd rather pray than play. Ugh, I just don't understand it. Indeed I do. And I'm just itching to take you places you've only ever dreamed of, darling. What's a lousy 250 gold between an adventurer like you and a fine piece of tale like the one I've got in store for you? Oh, that's the spirit, sugar. Oh, gold always puts me in the mood for a little romance. Follow me then, my knight in shining armour.
And here's a shiny coin. Keep the change.
Do you believe in the gods, baby? Because you're the answer to all my prayers. boys!
Gods! The fuse is getting shorter! Stop!
You there! Back off! Bicky boom! One more step and Bicky boom!
No, don't go! Please help me! That thing is keeping me trapped here! It's crazy! It'll kill me!
Never fear, madam. He's bluffing. He'll never dare to blow himself up.
True. Be my guest, buddy. What damage can a little squirt like you do?
Bicky boom!
There you are, darling. Shall we get started then? So we shall, sugar. But do please ask your friend over there to give us a bit of privacy first.
Striking it rich! Another one for the collection.
There you are, darling. Shall we get let's do it. But first, I need to know about your preferences, darling. You're in charge tonight, after all. So tell me, which sort best floats your boat? A savage, merciless witch, or a gentle, sensuous nymph? Oh, I was hoping you'd say that. Not every customer can handle the thrill of a mid-afternoon fright, you know. And if I'm any good at this, I'll scare the pants right off you. Come, let's make ourselves comfortable. And this witch will weave her charms. It was a terribly stormy night. In the tiny hut, a cauldron steamed and bubbled. A figure stood in the corner, pressing its fat, purple nose into the sharp indentation where the hut's walls met. Low muttering burbled through its jagged teeth and bloated lips. A knock, swift and sharp, fell upon the door. "Babe Orb," a small voice called. "Babe Orb, it's happening, it's time." The figure stood up straight and straightened the long, stained apron that hung about its hips. "A moment, child, a moment," Babe Orb croaked, hurrying over to the cauldron. She quickly filled 2 flasks with the swirling violet brew and stuffed them into her pouch. In a flash, she was through the hut's door, flicking 2 gold coins at the grubby child, who scrambled to retrieve them from the dark doorsteps where they fell. The wind whipped Babe Orp's hair, lashing her thick skin with thorns. But the old witch had mind for one fact alone. The counsellor was nearly dead. After some minutes, she arrived at the edges of town. Working her way into the counsellor's sick room now required stealth, not speed. And so Babe Orp crept, silent as a cat, between alley and square until she came to the doors of his old, silent mansion. It was nearly easy for the witch to sidle in, masked in a simple wallflower charm, and wind her way into the crowded room where the counsellor lay dying. She cradled her flask in her arms, enjoyed their warm sloshing, and awaited the final moment. Soon, she whispering croaked, soon enough the counsellor will be mine. The wailing mourners around her took no notice. And that's the end of chapter 1. So cutie. What do you think? Oh, I bet you could use a pipe, couldn't you? A few puffs sure takes the edge off the suspense, doesn't it? Oh, well. This has been a pleasure, darling. Come find me again any old time.
If only the popular girls from the Source Academy could see how edgy and dangerous you've become. If only the popular girls from the Source Academy could see how edgy and dangerous you've become.
Over here, sweetie. Oh.
Come hither, sweetheart. Oh, if I had a star for every time you brighten my day, I'd have a galaxy in my...
Beware of the lost ones out there, Wanderer. Their blood is impure. May the goddess guide you through the forest and keep you safe.
Why don't you stay a while, darling?
Come hither,
I just know I
sweetheart.
could take you on a
Oh, if I had a
wild ride if you let
Service, please.
Beware of the lost ones out there, Wanderer. Their blood is impure.
You sure the goblins wouldn't mind?
Dearest Alfie, how brave you were. You there! Your knightship! Oh, please, come to our aid! My wife and I are stranded here. Oh, we're refugees, my liege. Two of the far too few souls that managed to escape Hunter's Edge when the orcs invaded. We were hoping to reach Silverglen, but we were attacked by highwaymen. Those devils would have scalped and skewered us if it hadn't been for Alfie. Oh, the brave creature bit one of them in half, though not before being frightfully wounded himself. Oh, it was naught but a small stop for trading folk along the long road south to Sicil. Well, we got along all right, but now our little home's finally been undone. Orcs invaded, and the source hunter who was meant to protect us didn't save a one of us. Bravest beast of burden in the borough is Alfie, but the poor blighter's bleeding like a stuck pig and can't move no more, which means we can't move no more either. Why, it would be folly to abandon a bandit killer in a wood full of bandits now, wouldn't it, your knightship? Besides, all our worldly wealth is strapped to his back. We'd be destitute without it. And yet, we can hardly stay here forever. Silverglen is close enough to see the chimney fumes from here. Mara absolutely refuses to leave Alfie's side, and like I said, I'm inclined to agree with her. If only a stout champion would, step up and lend us a hand. Oh, we'd be mighty grateful if you would escort us to Silverglen, your knightship, for it is our aim to set up shop there, a new smithy in a new town. Without Alfie, though, without the tools he carries, I'd be like a fisherman without his rod, grasping for salmon with his bare hands. Never could I produce the quality of work for which I'm renowned. Our predicament is clear, and the biggest problem is that Alfie's wounds are so dire, no ordinary healing potion will work. He needs... well, I don't know what he needs, but they say miracle cures are produced by the priests of Silverglen. Oh, we are, my liege, though like I said, it would grieve us dearly to leave Alfie behind.
You're right. We should try to heal Alfie first.
Indeed. He carries your belongings after all.
I'm glad you've agreed Alfie needs to be saved before we can depart. Please leave no stone unturned in your search for a concoction that will heal his wounds.
I need a moment to reflect. It does feel quite good to give of oneself to those in need.
I can't believe we're stuck here, so close to our goal. Oh, will we ever reach Silverglen?
Your generosity honors our esteemed order.
I knew that man, comrade. A fine blacksmith, Bjorn. It gladdens me more than you can imagine to see he and Mara escaped Hunter's Edge. But it's no wonder he blames me for what happened there. Well, it started like any other day, comrade. I told you before, and this much was true. Hunter's Edge was a quiet place. There hadn't been a peep from the Phantom Forest in nearly a century, and save the occasional drunken orc wandering in from the west, there was nothing for any of the townsfolk to fear. I was on patrol one sunny afternoon when I stumbled upon a pair of scrawny orcs building a fire. Bellowed at 'em to get, but they went for their swords instead. Well, I made short work of 'em, but I couldn't find their tribe insignia anywhere. What I did find was a deep red, apple-sized gemstone in one of their pockets. It was warm in my hand and seemed far too fine a treasure to belong to an orc. You and I both know that now, but then my senses were dulled by years of peace. I'd grown soft. I was foolish. I figured it to be an oversized ruby, and it was the worst misjudgment of my life, comrade. Their kind never did take a shining to such finery, so I assumed it had been stolen for its trading value. I pocketed the gem and planned on sending it up to Academy North for the Order to deal with.
I'm fine. Don't worry about me. But how about you close your eyes for a bit? Have a rest.
Close my eyes in the middle of
All
the
was
gorilla
peaceful
forest?
back at the village. All was quiet. If only I'd known then. If only I had paid attention, had seen the signs. Night had only just begun to fall when they surrounded us. It could only have been a few dozen, but they swarmed like hundreds. Those of us who resisted were immediately cut down. I watched the blood of innocent villagers spill into the streets. I saw their bodies hit the ground. People it was my job to protect, comrade. I made myself promise that night, comrade. Never again would I let another sign of source pass me by unnoticed. Never again would I fail in my sworn duty. It's a promise I intend to keep. Let's discuss it another time, comrade. It ain't easy for an old bear like me to greet these ghosts. For now, maybe we ought to soldier forward. Plenty to be done around these parts, eh? Ready to advance, ready to defend.
What was that? A bandit? Huh?
Oh, no!
It's nothing but a squirrel.
Please!
Dear, oh
No,
dear, my
no! You're hurting him, Sir Knight! Oh, no wizard's tricks will cure poor Alfie.